Hi, I'm Heather from booktubes, and today is Who's Afraid of Little Old Me? You Should Be. Romance, kind of romance fantasy, a lot of them, but romance recommendations that are not Throne of Glass. So I think for a lot of people, Throne of Glass is the first thing that comes to mind when they think of the song and its lyrics in comparison to a book because of the opening scene of that very first book and then the evolution of the characters. So you open up literally with a assassin that is in prison and being forced into a competition, and there's all of this security around them, and it's like you're taking all of these precautions, but in reality they're not good enough. So I feel like that's the one that people have like automatically gone to. So here are some recommendations that are not Throne of Glass. This is like my favorite thing in books, so if you have a recommendation for me, let me know. But I absolutely love when a character is like, there's nothing to see here. It's fine, calm down, but then also they're like, actually, you should be afraid of me, and I'm gonna show you why. I love it. I love it. It's my favorite thing, which is why if you watch my channel all the time, you're gonna see a lot of my favorite books on this list because this is my favorite trope, I think. Like, it is. My very first one is One Dark Window, which is the Shepherd King duology #1 by Rachel Gillig. This is a completed duology. I loved the second book just as much as the first one. You have a very interesting shift for the second book, and I think that worked very well. So this is about a girl who, you know, is perfectly fine. Nothing to see here, nothing to worry about, but also she has a nightmare living in her mind, a literal one. And also, you know, she might end the entire kingdom, who even knows? But she has magic that is forbidden and people are hunted and killed for it. And there's a lot of themes in this book about how all the rules don't apply to the elite. And she has a romance with the captain of the guard, which is actually the king's nephew, and who she might have more in common with than she would think. I love this. I loved this. This is easily like my new favorite of the year. Had such a wonderful time. I bought the physical copies. I am already itching for a reread. I've already bought merch of this. This is such a good fantasy romance, and I think if you don't like the romance that you really won't like this book, but the magic and the world building was really beautiful and really did it for me too. My next recommendation is Queen and Conqueror, which is the Queen's Red Guard #1 by Isabelle Olmo. This is a feminist fantasy, is how it's marketed, and you have a queen who, in order to save her country, decides to marry the man who killed her husband, and they have an alliance, and she is incredibly well versed in diplomacy and ruling and politics, and she's the smartest person in the room, and her new husband is just like, point me in a direction and I'll fight. And it's really, really good. This is a pretty dark world. There's a lot of homophobia in this world. You have characters that have really suffered for being gay, but then you also have a lot of gay characters that are finding joy and finding like happiness. And the Queen's Guard is completely a all-woman guard, and they are badass. They're so cool. So I really like this one so much because of the female characters specifically. They were everything. And maybe I should reread this one too. This is an ongoing fantasy romance series, so the prequel and the first 2 books are out, and then book 3 is coming out later this year, and I don't know how long it's actually going to be. The next one is also by a Latinx author, and that is Sinner's Isle by Angela Montoya. In this world, you have women who have magical powers, but they are condemned by the church, and they're actually sinners. Sinner's Isle. And they're locked up on an island. Sinner's Isle. Do I need to spell all this out for you? But there's this thing where they have their blood tied to someone, and then that person can control their will, so they can control their magic to protect everybody, from, you know, the big bad magic users, the witches. Obviously we can't trust them, but also every other aspect of their life too, because there's no free will. Obviously you have this witch and she's turning 18, so it's her turn to be picked, and there's a new king and her magic is very powerful, so obviously the king is going to choose her. And then maybe there is a pirate prince who washes up on the island in the midst of all of this, and she kind of has a soulmate time with him. I loved this. This is a book with a lot of queer joy in it, and also such a wonderful, amazing, fantastic revenge scene where it's like, oh, you definitely should have locked me up tighter, let me tell you, because I'm burning everything down. And also this is a standalone fantasy romance, which is pretty unusual. Next I have Evil Twin by Kati Wilde. This is one where he is literally the evil twin to the king. He's the general and his parents made him promise not to kill his brother. So he feels contractually obligated not to kill him, but he really doesn't want to have to deal with him. So his plan is to seduce his brother's bride and rule her country instead. And then, you know, things happen. And this is like steamy romance, okay? This is a novella. This is under 200 pages, I want to say. There's a lot of sex in here. It's very heavily focused on the romance, but I love what it says about human nature, and I love what it says about this trope of the evil twin. So clever and so fun, and again, like, I like watching people get what's coming to them. And this is a standalone in a fantasy romance world. So there are other books set in her universe in the same continent as this, but this is definitely a standalone. Next is The Mask of Mirrors, which is the Rick and Rose trilogy by M.A. Carrick. This is a completed trilogy. All 3 books are incredible, amazing, and this follows a con woman who is trying to literally con her way into the nobility, and she again is the smartest person in every room, and it's watching her maneuver through the politics of the nobility, while also she herself is actually a member of the lower indigenous class, and, you know, having to try and blend in with people you hate. This is some of my all-time favorite characters. This is like Six of Crows and the Thief all grown up in adult fantasy with quite a few romance subplots, and it's fantastic. I would die for these characters. You don't even understand. Next is Iron Widow, which is Iron Widow #1. This is by Shirin J. Zhao, and this is the only book that's out in this series, but let me tell you, don't wait till the next book comes out to pick it up, because it's so good. This is a reimagined history of China's only female emperor, and it is a love triangle that turns polyamorous, and it is very much fuck the patriarchy. You all, again, you should have killed me while you had the chance. You should have put me in the ground. You should have stomped on me even more than you already did, because I hate all of you so much, and I am willing to do anything to tear this system down, and I'm going to show you exactly why you should have been afraid of me in the first place. It is so good. It is so good. Oh, the revenge in this. I love watching her literally like kill everyone who has ever wronged her. Yes, thank you. Yes, I actually do love it. If you are going to show me oppression, if you are going to show me just people being the worst and you don't have the power to do anything back to them, I want that book to then progress to where you get that power and you are able to just make them beg for their lives and be like, no, I'm killing you anyways. I don't know what to tell you. I'm a little bit bloodthirsty like that. I think it's deserved. I'm on board. Like, I'm a supporter. I am there with you. Let's kill them. It's fine. We're only talking fictionally, YouTube. Let me live. This one does have sci-fi elements and mech elements. Like, my frame of reference is Power Rangers. So That's all I've got for you. It's so good. It is so good. Next, I have The Thief, which is The Queen's Thief #1 by Megan Willow Turner. This is my all-time favorite series. I'm going to be doing a read-along for it later this year. I love this series so much. The first book starts with like this very small scope, and you're on a road trip basically, and you've only got like this tiny cast of characters, and it's just them isolated. And then the series is like, also the entire world's at war and we're going to try and stop colonization because you're not coming over here. So good. It's so good. And it has one of my favorite romances of all time, even though it is a small part of the series. And so the first book is about a thief who claims that he can steal anything, but he's in prison and has been in prison for quite some time. And he gets plucked from obscurity to steal an unstealable thing. What do you think happens? It's so good! This is a completed 6-book series and is fantastic. I can't wait to reread it later this year. Next, I have an urban fantasy series, and it is my all-time favorite, and that is Magic Bites, which is the first in the Kate Daniels series by Ilona Andrews. This is a urban fantasy romance. You have one couple, you follow them for 10 books. It is a completed series, and you have a mercenary who is hiding the full extent of their abilities, and you get to see her romance with the king of the shifters. And you have like this constant building of politics and power and what it means to amass power to protect the people that you love, but also having that target on your back, and also having everyone be afraid of you, and how that affects your personal relationships. This takes place in the United States when magic has come back into the world. So you have Atlanta, but is completely warped by magic, and you have waves of magic and waves of tech. So sometimes your phone works, and sometimes your gun works, and sometimes only the people with powerful magic have the upper hand. So it's very interesting. The first book was written quite some time ago, so the first couple books have a bit of dated language, but as you proceed through the series, that definitely improves, and it's really just the best of the best of the best. Some of you have been listening to me talk about this for like 3 years and haven't even picked it up yet. So, you should. Next, I have a book that is not fantasy at all. It's my favorite book of all time, and it is The Blue Castle by Ellen Montgomery. This is the author of Anne of Green Gables. And so this was written 100 years ago, and it is a woman that is like, actually, I think that you all suck. I think my family sucks. I think the society sucks. I don't think it's very Christian of you to be the way that you are. I am going to do what I think is moral and ethical. So I'm going to go take care of this girl who was ruined by a pregnancy out of wedlock, and her baby died, and she's actually dying, and no one's taking care of her. And I don't think that's very Christian of you, so I'm gonna go do it. And, if that makes me an outcast of society, so be it. So be it. I'm going to do what I think is right. And as the person who grew up evangelical, this really, really spoke to me so much. And I adore this book. This is a standalone, so honestly, it's delightful. You could tell me that 5 million people have read it, and I would still tell you it's underhyped. Hey, just popping in here with a recommendation that I did not write down, so it didn't get done, but The 100,000 Kingdoms by N.K. Jemisin is a heir to the throne being brought back, and no one knows why, probably just to sacrifice her. And also they have the gods enslaved and have for millennia, and maybe she has a romance with a god, and maybe she's going to unleash all of the things that they are most afraid of. This is, I think, a completed trilogy, but can be read as a standalone, and I've only read the first book. I've only read it as a standalone, but it was so good. Lastly, I have another very popular recommendation, but it is so perfect. So perfect for this trope, and it is one of my favorites, and I am actually rereading it, and that is The Cruel Prince, which is the Folk of the Air trilogy by Holly Black. This is another completed trilogy. This is about a human girl who grows up in the fairy kingdom, the Fae kingdom, and she goes to high school, the equivalent of high school, with the other young Fae, and it's a bully romance with the prince of the Fae. But so she starts out powerless, and that being her driving force, really, and becomes something to be feared. That's like a big theme of the book and the trilogy, and I absolutely love it. Like, this is what I want. This is what I want, is to see it, like, again, if you're gonna give me that life sucks and this sucks, I want to see my character completely overcome that, turn it on its head, get revenge on everyone that made them feel that way in the first place. I want it. And the Fae can't lie, and the Fae are just as terrible as you've heard about. And I have always been really into books where the Fae can't lie, because you have to pay such careful attention to their wording and what it could also mean beyond the thing that you are assuming it means because of the context of the conversation. And I just love that. I've always been a fan of that. And sometimes I get frustrated because I'm just reading the book, right? I'm just reading the book, and I'm like, okay, I really have to pay attention to their words and what else it could mean. And my character is living in this world, and their very life depends on it, and they're not paying as much attention. That's not really the case in this book. Jude is such a fun main character because she really is up to the task of outsmarting people that think that she is lesser than, and I am a fan. I'm a fan. So that's it. Those are my recommendations for Who's Afraid of Little Old Me. Well, you should be. I'm gonna show you why, and you're gonna wish you had crushed me like a bug when you got the chance, because I am gonna crush you. I love it if you have recommendations for me that follow this type of trope. Again, like, so many of my all-time favorites are on this list, and this is really what I like, especially in fantasy romance. This is really what I like, where my main character ends up outsmarting everyone else. It's the best. So that's it. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.